Hi guys, welcome to a really strange episode of Dr. Film's Psychedelic Mustache Review Emporium. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Bennett.
And I'm Matt Canella.
And today we're going to be doing our best of 2013 discussion. We're going to be talking about the films that we thought are the best of 2013. I guess that goes without saying.
Yeah, there was a lot of them.
Yeah, so to do this, we both put together a list of our top 3 favorite films. We'll discuss those, and then we'll discuss some other ones, some runner-ups or some possibly forgotten films.
Sleeper hits, a little worst stuff, maybe.
Yeah, maybe we'll get into a little bit of worst stuff. And we're gonna flounder through this one like we flounder through every other episode. And we're just gonna go ahead and start out with our number 3 favorite films of 2013. What was your number 3 favorite film?
My number 3 favorite film is called Upstream Color by director Shane Carruth. It's kind of a smaller independent picture. You might remember Shane Carruth from his previous movie Primer. It's been a while, but this one is kind of just a strange art house picture about a guy and a girl. There's a little bit of a psychic bond between them. It's a little sci-fi, it's a little drama. It's just unique, and that's what I like to see out of a picture when I go to see something. It's one that might haunt you. If you didn't see it, like many people didn't, go check it out on DVD or Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure it's in the Netflix queue. Give it a try and you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, unfortunately I haven't seen this one. And I also haven't heard a whole lot of buzz around this one. As we move into the sort of awards time of year, as we approach the Academy Awards, do you think there's going to be any recognition of this film?
I highly doubt it. It's one of those ones that's kind of a really art house one that's got a lot of strangeness to it. I didn't even fully quite get it upon leaving the theater. I mean, it warrants perhaps second or third viewings if you're into those types of pictures. If you see it once, it's so wildly different. Some people might be so turned off to think, oh, this is pretentious, there's nothing to it, it's just being weird for weird's sake. But I would say take a look at it critically. Think of it in a different term than just your typical narrative cinema, and you might get something out of it.
No.
What about you? What clocks in at number 3?
For me, number 3 is one that we saw kind of recently, The Wolf of Wall Street. And it's funny that you're talking about your number 3 being kind of weird, because that's part of the reason I like The Wolf of Wall Street so much, is that it's this bizarre film from a director that everyone knows. Like, you kind of know what to expect from Martin Scorsese films, and this is one where he kind of turns it on its head. I mean, there's some telltale Scorsese things there, but this is off the wall.
Yeah, every once in a while I would pull myself out of my viewership and say, hey, what is going on here? They're dancing in his office with a band and naked women and confetti, and it's just this whole art house scene almost.
I also just had fun the whole time. I mean, we talked about we reviewed this movie last week, so people already probably know how I feel about some of the things that didn't work for me. But the fact that this movie was so fun is the reason it's number 3 for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. You know, if people are into kind of, don't mind drugs and sex and all of that on screen,
well, yeah.
I think you'll have a fun time. Maybe it's not, joke, funny, laugh out loud, but if you like Scorsese, you know what he's about, this one's a fun romp through his wacky mind.
Yeah. Number 2s, what was your second favorite film from last year?
My second favorite film was just a sci-fi masterpiece, Gravity. It was so interesting and unique. Just with 2 people, it boiled the story down to kind of a rebirth, a regenesis in blank space, devoid of sound. It was just fun. I liked the 3D. It might have been one that people who haven't seen a 3D for a while went back to see this one. I was pleasantly surprised, and I think many others would agree.
Yeah, so Gravity is my number 2 as well. And I really appreciate that they had some pretty nice themes in this film, like you mentioned about the rebirth and stuff like that. They didn't beat you over the head with it. It was there if you were looking for it. If you weren't looking for it, it was still just a great outer space action movie. And as I was putting my list of 3 together, I was thinking about which movies are going to influence the next generation of films. And this is one that I felt really strongly about, because this is one that I guarantee you in the coming years, when people do outer space movies, you're going to see things like no sound in outer space, like they did this one. So I think it's important to recognize this film for the impact that it's going to have on future sci-fi films.
Yeah, and I hope they take note for the better, because it was interesting, and I think, you know, a more realistic depiction of space. I know there's some debate by scientists still saying, well, this isn't real at all, but it's more real in Hollywood than, you know, the Death Star blowing up with
laser
an
battles.
explosion.
Pew, 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 pew.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a movement in that right direction. No one's saying this is how it really is. It's an embellishment, it's Hollywood, but it was something new, minimal. I mean, and the 3D and the computer graphics have just been up to such a different level that it's really, you know, I think it had that good mix of the personal and the extravagant.
I agree with everything you just said. Before we get to our number ones, let's talk about some other important films that came out this year that didn't make it to our lists or maybe got forgotten. Let's start out with a movie like Pacific Rim. Where does a movie like Pacific Rim fit in this conversation? Because that was a big movie this summer, probably the most memorable film for me to come out of the summer. Where does that land? Do you think that's gonna get any recognition as people are discussing the best of in 2013?
It's a fun picture. I missed that one in theaters, caught it on the Blu-ray, and it was one of those ones that I said, man, I wish I had seen this in 3D and gone and seen it. It was fun. I don't think like we said, it changes my mind about anything in the world. And I think that's what the Academy Awards are about. That's not to say that you won't have fun seeing this picture.
It's interesting because I think about movies like Independence Day, which had a very profound impact on the way that action movies or destruction movies were made from there forward. This to me is last year's Independence Day. Like, it's gonna change the way these types of films are made. We got a Godzilla movie coming out this year. You don't think it's gonna be impacted in some way by Pacific Rim? I guarantee you it is.
Yeah, the creatures were just really cool. I mean, and that goes to show Guillermo del Toro has always really been into unique and interesting creatures, and he just ups it in this one. So it's nice to see him unleashed in a film like this.
Let's move on and talk about another film that we both saw, American Hustle. Where does that land in this discussion?
Yeah, I thought that was a great overall picture. You know, to me, it was fun, and it doesn't land as high on the list for me because it almost seems like David O. Russell doing a Martin Scorsese picture.
It did feel like that.
You know, like it didn't have that edge to it that you see in a Scorsese one. It seems like, you know, a good step for David O. Russell, and I mean, Christian Bale's unreal. Amy Adams is unreal, and you know, Jennifer Lawrence, I thought she was fun, but I wouldn't rate her as high in this one as a lot of people did.
That's interesting because I feel like Amy Adams was so in the film, and I thought Jennifer Lawrence was great.
I thought Jennifer Lawrence's accent broke a few times to me that I wasn't buying it. It was either she wasn't doing it completely, but Amy Adams feels like a real person, whereas Jennifer Lawrence to me felt like someone playing a role.
Yeah, she was kind of a character in that movie.
And sometimes that works for me, Jonah Hill in Wolf of Wall Street, and sometimes it doesn't.
There were some pretty high-profile comedies that came out this year. You have movies like The Heat, We're the Millers, This Is the End, or The World's End. Where do comedies land in the discussion for best of a year?
I mean, when we're talking about what the best of is, are they Academy Award pictures, or are they just in general that I have a good time at? You know, and I think comedies can fall into that top 10 list of personal taste. And people often ask, why don't they get in the discussion for Best Picture of the Year? Everyone went and saw it and enjoyed it. Often for me, they're a little devoid of subtext. That's what falls short a lot of times to me with horror and comedy, is what you see is what you get. The laugh's the laugh, and there's not a lot more to it. I always feel like it can fall in a personal list, maybe perhaps not Academy Award. What do you think about that subject?
Well, it's interesting to me because we talk about Academy Awards as sort of the example of like what a best movie is, but I don't necessarily agree that that's the best way to judge how good a film is. because for me, like, I think the best comedy that came out this year was The World's End. That was the movie I had the most fun watching. It's interesting to me that oftentimes when a discussion of like what's the best movie comes up, that people typically divide themselves, like within themselves, of like, this is a good movie, I recognize that it's a good movie, this is a movie I had fun watching. And I'm not saying that I agree, I think one way or the other, I just think it's interesting that we feel the need to divide ourselves that way, to say like, oh, that's a comedy, and yeah, I had a lot of fun watching it, but it didn't help me grow as a person like another movie like Dallas Buyers Club did. You know, something a little bit more meaty and substantial.
I think those types of films, I mean, because I laughed a lot in Dallas Buyers Club, right?
That's true.
So it had some comedy to it. I like the films that can hit on all cylinders sometimes.
Yeah.
And are using cinema to its fullest potential. They're making use of unique editing techniques to drive a narrative story in a new way that is only possible through film. Why can't this story be told as a novel or as a poem?
I didn't mean to derail our conversation so far into the discussion of comedy.
I think it's worth talking about when we do talk about what are some of the best pictures of the year and what does that mean for us personally and globally as a critic society.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the movies that we liked or that we thought were pretty decent this year. But now, what did you hate? What was your least favorite movie you saw this year?
One of my least favorite movies of this year was actually one that, you know, maybe it's not the worst, but disappointed me, was World War Z. I usually kind of like those types of pictures and was pretty excited for this one. I mean, when someone said Brad Pitt's gonna be in a zombie picture, I thought, okay, this seems pretty interesting, I'll go check it out. And it just really didn't do it for me. I don't know what it was. The relationships between characters seemed to fall flat, and it kind of assumed that you knew exactly what a zombie picture was. And this is the stylings of that. There was things to like in it, but I just felt like it fell so flat for me. And the reason why it's on my list is because I feel like I guard myself from seeing a lot of bad pictures. We don't go out and see everything. I mean, there was a few that slipped by me, and I try not to pay for the bad ones because I don't want to support that. But this one was one that I paid for and just didn't really work out. And I don't really know what more. It happens, you know?
Yeah, no, it does.
But I feel like other people really liked this one as a zombie picture. And, you know, I'm not a total fanboy for the zombie things, but, you know, my favorite being 28 Days Later, and this one just really didn't come close to that.
Yeah, I like zombie movies, but there was something about this movie that just seemed a little bit flat. Like, it was just missing something, and maybe what it was missing was the R rating. That was like one of the first things I noticed when they were advertising that one, is PG-13. Well, how do you do a decent zombie movie in PG-13? I don't know, it's just, I'm sure it can be done.
And it wasn't even, you know, totally the lack of violence. You know, I'd rather see less violence, but it was just like that character relationships. It just didn't seem believable to me.
There is that too.
What about you? What fell flat in 2013?
I'm afraid to be like too incredibly mean, which might be surprising to some people. But for me, the worst movie this year was Mortal Instruments: City of Bone. And I think it's important to discuss worst of the year, because by addressing the fact that a movie was bad or that it failed to accomplish everything that it wanted to accomplish, I hope that we can recognize what made it bad and improve on that in the future. And Mortal Instruments: City of Bone feels like one of those movies that's just being churned out of a factory as part of this, like, we got to make every teen lit book into a film. And I feel like it lacked any sort of artistic integrity, and some of that sort of money grubbing came to the forefront when I was watching this movie.
It might be symptomatic of the fact that within, you know, novels, they're getting churned out like a factory as well. So if the source material isn't quite there, maybe it's not going to make the best picture.
Yeah, a little bit of that diminishing returns kind of thing. To me, it's just, I don't know, like, I want them to be good. I want all movies to be good. I don't want to give bad reviews of films. I would love if every time I went to the theater, I was guaranteed to get something out of it. So I bring this up because I hope that as they make the other books in the Mortal Instruments series, that they get better, because I don't have any ill wishes for any films or filmmakers. I just want good movies when I go to the theater.
You just want to feel like you get what you paid for.
Yeah.
I'm not wasting my time.
And on that note, that might be a good time to talk about our favorite films from last year. What was your number one favorite film from 2013?
My number one favorite film is the Coen brothers' Inside Llewyn Davis. No one makes films like them. It was just so unique in the way it was paced, what it's about, this personal journey, a unique slice of Americana set in a unique time, and I just loved it the whole way through. A little bit more on the depressing side, but in a good way, that I felt reinvigorated about my life and the way that I interact with people. And that's what really brings me time and time again back to see good cinema, is when I come out of a film and I feel like I understand the world around me a little bit better, and all I can do is thank the filmmakers for making something that brings art and life and entertainment all together in this synthesis we call the movie-going experience, you know, and that's what makes me excited to be reviewing it, making films, and just everything about it. So if you haven't seen it, that's the top of my list. Go check it out.
And this is one that unfortunately I haven't seen, and I love the Coen brothers, so I'm kind of kicking myself for not having gotten around to see it. But the last couple months of this year have been full of great films. Like as we discuss some of our favorite films from this year, a lot of them are still in theaters. Like you can probably go see these movies right now.
Definitely, it's what we like to call the Oscar season. So a lot of the good ones that stick with you come out, and this definitely falls right into that category. What about you? What is your number one picture for this year?
My number one favorite film this year was 12 Years a Slave. And this is one, kind of like you were saying with Inside Llewyn Davis, affected me. Man, that's a powerful movie.
It really is.
In a lot of ways. And it's one of those movies where you think you know all the stories about slavery. I mean, we've had a lot of movies that are about this topic, and we learn a lot about it just going through school and stuff like that. And this is one of those movies that shows you yet another side of it that you didn't realize was there. And the other thing I liked about the movie is that the main character he's not this perfect character that gets put in a bad situation. He has his own problems that he needs to overcome. You know, he has his own flaws within himself. And I appreciated that this movie didn't just paint him as like a good guy that gets screwed.
Right. You know, and that's what I kind of liked too about it, was that he seems to grow as a character, not just by getting out, but embracing a part of a community that he really didn't have any interaction with prior to.
Yeah, and also just absolutely beautiful performances from so many of the actors in that film. That's my number one.
I think there'll be some Oscar nominations for that one.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. I pretty much everything on our lists, with the exception of your weird number 3.
Yeah, still go see it. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we can wrap it up there. That seems like a good place to bring this episode to a close. Like you said, a lot of these movies still in theaters, so please, if you have the opportunity, go out and see them, because some of them are great.
Yeah, or check out some of the weird ones we mentioned that might be out on Blu-ray or DVD. The ones that slipped through the cracks and might not be around for the Oscar season nominations, but are still good ones to check out.
Yeah, all right, so that's going to bring this episode of Dr. Film's Psychedelic Mustache Review Emporium to a close. Till next week, take care.
Thanks for watching.